The smell hit me first: old grease, burnt coffee, and the faint metallic tang of exhaustion that seemed to cling to my uniform, no matter how many times I washed it. My feet throbbed inside my worn sneakers as I wiped down table 7 for what felt like the 100th time that shift. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in that sickly yellowish glow that made even the youngest customers look half dead. I was invisible here. Just another black girl in a stained apron, refilling coffee cups and forcing smiles at people who looked through me like I was part of the furniture. "Maya, table 12 needs water," Donna barked from behind the counter, not even looking up from her phone. "On it," I murmured, grabbing a pitcher with hands that had gone numb somewhere around hour 6 of my double shift. It was nearly midnight on a Tuesday, and the diner was mostly empty except for a few regulars nursing their loneliness in coffee and pie. I should have been at home. Should have been studying for my ASL interpretation exam. Should have been 1,000 places other than here. But student loans didn't pay themselves, and neither did my mother's medical bills. I was halfway to table 12 when the door chimed. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. 3 men walked in, and everything about them screamed money and danger in equal measure. The first 2 were clearly security, broad-shouldered, wearing dark suits that probably cost more than my entire year's tuition, their eyes scanning the diner with the kind of systematic precision that made my stomach tighten. But it was the 3rd man who made me freeze mid-step. He moved like a shadow given form, tall and lean in a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been sewn directly onto his body. Korean, probably in his early 30s, with sharp cheekbones and eyes so dark they looked black in the diner's harsh lighting. His presence filled the space in a way that had nothing to do with physical size and everything to do with power. This was not the kind of man who belonged in a place like this. He didn't look at the menu board or the empty tables. His gaze swept the room once, cataloging exits, threats, witnesses, before settling on the booth furthest from the windows. One of his men moved ahead, checking the seat, the view, even glancing under the table before giving a subtle nod. I realized I was staring and quickly looked away, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Maya!" Donna hissed. "Stop gawking and take their order." I wanted to refuse. Every instinct I had screamed that these men were dangerous, that I should stay as far away from them as possible. But I needed this job, and Donna's glare promised I'd lose it if I didn't move. I forced my feet to carry me toward their table, pitcher trembling slightly in my hand. As I approached, I noticed a 4th man being helped through the door. Older, maybe in his 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes. He walked with a slight shuffle, one of the suited men supporting his elbow with surprising gentleness. The older man's gaze was unfocused, searching, and something about the way he tilted his head made recognition spark in my chest. The younger man in the charcoal suit rose smoothly from his seat, his movements fluid and controlled. Up close, he was even more intimidating. There was something coiled about him, like a predator deciding whether you were worth the effort of killing. "Good evening," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "Can I get you?" The older man bumped into a chair, stumbling slightly. His mouth opened, and he made a sound. Not words, but a vocalization that confirmed what I'd already suspected. He was deaf. The younger man's hand shot out to steady him, and for just a moment, something soft flickered across that hard face. Concern, love even. The older man was trying to communicate something, his hands moving in gestures that were ASL but fragmented, uncertain. He was pointing at me, then at the menu board, frustration creasing his features. Without thinking, my hands moved. "Good evening. My name is Maya. I'll help you." The effect was instantaneous. The older man's face lit up like sunrise, his whole body relaxing as he signed back enthusiastically. "You know sign language. Oh, thank God. My son never takes me anywhere I can communicate." I couldn't help but smile, my hands responding automatically. "What would you like to eat?" I was so focused on the conversation that I didn't notice the absolute silence that had fallen over the table until I felt it. That heavy, weighted attention. When I finally looked up, the younger man was staring at me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. His eyes had gone very dark, very still. The 2 security guards had shifted, their postures alert, hands drifting toward their jackets in a way that made my throat go dry. "Where did you learn that?" The younger man's voice was soft, accented, and somehow more dangerous for its gentleness. My hands stilled mid-sign. I'm studying to be an interpreter. ASL is... Don't stop, the older man signed, his expression almost pleading. Please. It's been so long since someone could talk to me properly. The younger man said something in Korean, sharp and commanding. One of the guards immediately pulled out a phone, stepping away while speaking in rapid, hushed tones. I felt trapped suddenly, pinned between the older man's hopeful expression and the younger man's calculating stare. "I should get your order," I said, trying to sound professional, normal, like my hands weren't shaking. "He'll have the bulgogi if you have it," the older man signed, then paused. "Do you have bulgogi here?" I had to bite back a laugh despite my fear. This was Joe's Diner in downtown Seattle, where the most exotic thing on the menu was Italian sausage that came from a package. "I'm sorry, no bulgogi. But we have steak, burgers, chicken." "Steak," he decided immediately. "Medium rare. And tell my son to stop looking at you like that. He's scaring you." The younger man spoke again, this time in English. "My father seems quite taken with you." "I'm just doing my job, sir. Your job is to serve food. You're doing considerably more than that." He leaned back in his seat, and the movement reminded me of a big cat stretching. Lazy, dangerous. "Tell me, Maya," I jolted. I hadn't told him my name. "How long have you been working here?" The guard with the phone returned, leaning down to whisper something in the younger man's ear. Whatever he said made those dark eyes narrow, made something sharp and predatory slide across his features. 2 years, I answered, because lying seemed more dangerous than the truth. "And you're studying interpretation?" "Stop interrogating the poor girl," his father signed. "She's trying to work." But the younger man ignored him, his attention fixed on me with an intensity that made me want to run. "University of Washington?" I nodded, my mouth too dry to speak. "Expensive program." It wasn't a question. "I need to check on other tables." I signed to the older man, then spoke aloud. "I'll put your orders in." I turned to leave, but the younger man's voice stopped me. "Maya." I looked back despite myself. "How much debt are you in?" The question was so unexpected, so invasive, that I actually took a step backward. That's not appropriate." 50,000? 70? His head tilted slightly. "More?" One of the other customers called for their check, giving me an escape route. I took it, practically fleeing back to the counter where Donna watched with wide eyes. "What the hell was that about?" she whispered. "I don't know," I admitted, my hands trembling as I entered their order into the ancient computer. "But something's wrong. Those men are none of our business," Donna cut in sharply. "Just serve them and stay out of it." But as I watched the younger man lean close to speak with his father, as I saw the older man's face light up again when he glanced my way, I had the sinking feeling that staying out of it was no longer an option. The food came up quickly. Donna must have pushed it through, probably as eager to get them out as I was. But when I brought the plates over, the older man grabbed my wrist gently. "Sit," he signed. "Please. Just for a moment." "I can't, I'm working." 5 minutes, the younger man said. It wasn't a request. My father rarely asks for anything. 5 minutes of your time seems a small price. The way he said price made my stomach drop. I sat. The older man's face crinkled into a smile so genuine it made my chest ache. "What's your name?" "Maya." "Beautiful name. I'm James. This is my son, Yunseo." He finger-spelled the name, and I filed it away in my memory, knowing somehow that I'd need to remember it. "It's nice to meet you both. You must forgive my son," James continued, his signs flowing easily now. "He forgets that not everything is a business transaction." I glanced at Yunseo, who was watching our conversation with an expression I couldn't read. His food sat untouched in front of him. "What are you saying about me?" he asked, his tone light, but his eyes sharp. "Your father says you have terrible manners," I translated without thinking. Something flickered across Yunseo's face. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. "Does he now?" "I like her," James signed to his son. switching so we could both see. She has spirit. I can see that. Now Yunseo's gaze hadn't left my face. Tell me, Maya with spirit, what happened to your mother? I went very still. How do you... You mentioned medical bills earlier. When you were muttering to yourself. He hadn't missed anything, I realized with growing dread. What's wrong with her? Stroke, I heard myself say. 6 months ago. She's in a care facility. Expensive. Yes. And your father? Gone. Since I was 7. James made a soft sound of sympathy, his hand reaching out to pat mine. The gesture was so paternal, so unexpectedly kind, that I felt tears prick my eyes. You're alone, he signed. I'm fine. I lied. You're drowning, Yunseo said quietly, and there was something almost gentle in his voice. Working 2 jobs, failing classes because you're too exhausted to study, watching your debt grow while your mother deteriorates in a facility that smells like death and disinfectant. Stop, I whispered. Why? He leaned forward, and I caught a scent, something expensive and clean, cedar and smoke. Because the truth hurts? Because you've been telling yourself that if you just work hard enough, sacrifice enough, it will somehow be okay? You don't know anything about me. I know everything about you. His smile was sharp. I know you're 3 months behind on your rent. I know the care facility sent you a notice last week threatening to transfer your mother to a state facility. I know you've been taking extra shifts, but it's still not enough. It will never be enough. The tears came then, hot and humiliating. Why are you doing this? Because I have a proposition for you. Don't. James signed urgently to his son. She's a good girl. Leave her alone. But Yunseo ignored him. I need someone who can communicate with my father. Someone I can trust. You don't know me. I know enough. And I'm willing to pay off your debts. All of them. Your student loans, your mother's medical bills, your rent. In exchange, you'll stay with my father, help him communicate, keep him company. It was too much, too good, too obviously a trap. What's the catch? The catch, he said softly, is that you'll belong to me. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. She won't do it, James signed frantically. It's not fair to her. But I was already doing the math in my head. No more double shifts. My mother in a good facility, finishing my degree. Freedom. What exactly does belong to you mean? I asked. Yunseo's smile was slow and dangerous. That's what we're going to find out. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something dark crossed his face. He stood abruptly, the guards immediately moving into formation around him. Think about it, he said, pulling out a business card and placing it on the table. Heavy cardstock, embossed with a single phone number. Call me when you've decided. Please don't. James signed to me, his eyes sad. Run far away from us, my son. He's not a good man, but Yunseo had already seen the exchange. He leaned down close to his father, whispering something in Korean that made the older man's face go pale. Then he looked at me one last time. Tick-tock, Maya. Your mother doesn't have much time. He paused at the door. Neither do you. And then they were gone, leaving only the card and a $100 bill for a $40 meal. I stared at the card, my hands shaking. I should throw it away, should forget this ever happened. Instead, I slipped it into my pocket, right next to my heart, and wondered what I'd just agreed to without saying a single word. I didn't call. For 3 days, I carried that card in my pocket like a ticking bomb, feeling its weight every time I moved. I worked my shifts at the diner, attended my classes in a fog, and visited my mother in that sterile facility that reeked of industrial cleaner and slow death. She didn't recognize me anymore. Who are you? She asked on the 3rd day, her words slurred from the stroke, her eyes cloudy with confusion. Where's my daughter? I'm right here, Mama, I whispered, holding her hand. The one that still had feeling, still had warmth. No. Maya's just a baby. You're too old to be my baby. The nurse gave me a sympathetic look as she adjusted my mother's IV. The confusion is getting worse. Dr. Patterson wants to discuss moving her to the memory care unit. How much more expensive is that? Her pause told me everything. I'll have the billing department send you the information. I sat with my mother for another hour, watching her sleep, counting the cost of every breath she took. The ventilator they wanted to put her on, $3,000 a month. The new medications, $800. The memory care unit, I didn't even want to know. When I left, there was an eviction notice on my apartment door. 30 days. I stared at it until the letters blurred, until my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, opened her door and gave me that look. The one that said she'd seen this before, knew how it ended. "You got someplace to go, honey?" she asked gently. I didn't answer. I went inside, locked the door, and pulled out the card. The numbers stared back at me, embossed in silver that caught the dying light filtering through my grimy window. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. What was I doing? I didn't know this man, didn't know what belonged to me really meant. He could be a trafficker, a killer, someone who collected vulnerable women, and my phone rang. Unknown number. My heart stopped, then started again. Too fast. Hello? You've been carrying my card for 3 days. Yoon Seo's voice was smooth, unhurried. I was beginning to think you'd lost it. How did you? You're standing in your apartment, studio, 9th floor, facing east. There's an eviction notice on your door, and you've been staring at my card for 17 minutes. I spun around, searching for cameras, for any sign of surveillance. The window. Was someone watching from another building? Stop looking, he said, and I heard amusement in his voice. You won't find them. This is insane. My voice cracked. You're insane. Perhaps. But I'm also your only option. A pause. Your mother has 4 weeks before the facility transfers her. Your landlord will file for eviction in 30 days. Your bank account has $127 and some change. You worked 16 hours yesterday and made $89 in tips. Tell me, Maya, how long can you keep drowning before you finally sink? I sank onto my second-hand couch. The phone pressed so hard against my ear it hurt. What do you want from me? I told you. I need someone for my father. You could hire a professional interpreter? Someone with credentials? Experience? He liked you. The words were simple, but something in his tone made them sound weighted. Dangerous. My father hasn't smiled like that in 3 years. Not since my mother died. I didn't know what to say to that. I'm sending a car, Yoon Seo continued. It will arrive in 20 minutes. Bring whatever you need for a week. Leave the rest. I haven't agreed to anything. Yes, you have. You carried my card for 3 days. You're still holding it now. You've already made your choice, Maya. You're just afraid to admit it. I need guarantees. A contract. Something. You'll have everything in writing. My lawyer will meet us at the house. His voice softened. Just slightly. Your mother will be transferred to Harborview Medical Center tomorrow morning. Private room, best neurologist in Seattle, experimental treatments if she's eligible. All of it covered. My breath caught. Harborview. I'd researched it during one desperate midnight spiral, the kind of place where senators and tech billionaires went to have their lives saved. The kind of place I could never afford in a million years. Why? I whispered. Why would you do all this for a stranger? The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Because I can, he finally said. Because my father smiled. Because you're drowning. And I'm throwing you a rope. Another pause. Whether that rope saves you or hangs you, well, that remains to be seen. The line went dead. I sat frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear, my mind racing through every possible outcome. This was how people disappeared, how they ended up on missing persons reports. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A photo of my mother, taken today based on her clothing, with a timestamp. She was smiling at something off camera, looking more alert than I'd seen her in weeks. The message below it read, "The car is outside." I went to the window. A black Mercedes SUV idled at the curb, its windows tinted so dark they looked like pools of oil. A man in a suit stood beside it, his posture patient, professional, waiting. I packed a bag with shaking hands, clothes, toiletries, my ASL textbooks, a photo of my mother from before the stroke. Everything I owned fit into one worn duffel bag. Somehow that felt appropriate, symbolic. The man by the Mercedes opened the door as I approached. He was Korean, maybe 40, with scarring on his knuckles that told stories I didn't want to know. "Ms. Chen," he said, his English precise. I'm Mr. Park. I'll be your driver. The interior of the SUV smelled like leather and money. The seats were heated, the windows so heavily tinted that the outside world looked dim and distant. Mr. Park pulled away from the curb smoothly, and I watched my apartment building disappear in the side mirror. No going back now. We drove north, away from the city, into the hills where houses became estates and gates became necessary. The Mercedes turned onto a private road, lined with old-growth firs, their branches creating a canopy that blocked out the late afternoon sun. Then the house appeared. House was too small a word for it. The place was a compound, ultra-modern architecture of glass and steel and dark wood that seemed to grow out of the hillside. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the surrounding forest, making it hard to tell where the building ended and nature began. The gate opened silently as we approached. 3 more men in suits materialized from somewhere, all of them moving with that same coiled precision I'd noticed in the diner. One of them opened my door. "Welcome, Ms. Chen." This one was younger, maybe mid-20s, with kind eyes that seemed wrong on someone with a gun visible beneath his jacket. "I'm David. I'll show you to your room." The interior was even more stunning than the exterior, all clean lines and expensive minimalism, with art on the walls that I suspected cost more than my entire life. The floors were heated marble, the ceilings soaring, and everything was positioned to take advantage of the view. Endless forest and, beyond it, a glimpse of Puget Sound. "Mr. Kang is in a meeting," David said as he led me through hallways that seemed to go on forever. "He'll speak with you when he's finished. In the meantime, you should rest. Dinner is at 7. My room was on the 2nd floor, a suite, really, with a bedroom bigger than my entire apartment had been, a bathroom done in Italian marble, and a walk-in closet that echoed when I stepped inside. The bed was enormous, covered in silk sheets that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the forest, and I could see the Sound glittering in the distance. A cage, I thought. A beautiful, expensive cage. On the dresser sat a folder. I opened it with trembling hands. Contract. 30 pages of legal jargon that made my head spin. But certain phrases jumped out. Duration. 1 year. Renewable compensation. $150,000 annually. Plus room and board duties. Interpretation services. Companionship for James Kang. Availability as needed. Termination clause. Either party may terminate with 30 days' notice, except... I stopped. Read that last part again. Except in cases where termination would endanger the employee or client family members. In such cases, protective custody may be required for the safety of all parties. "What the hell does that mean?" I muttered. "It means," a voice said from the doorway, making me jump, "that once you know certain things about my family, you can't simply walk away." Yunseo stood there, having changed from his suit into dark slacks and a black cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my car. He looked different here, on his own territory, more relaxed, but somehow more dangerous for it. "You're saying I'll be a prisoner. I'm saying you'll be protected." He moved into the room with that predatory grace, and I found myself backing up until my legs hit the bed. "There are people who would hurt you to get to me, Maya. People who would use you, break you, leave you bleeding in an alley somewhere. Once you're part of my household, you become my responsibility, my liability. My property?" His smile was sharp. "If you like. And if I refuse to sign, then Mr. Park will drive you home. Your mother will stay where she is. Your eviction will proceed, and in 6 months, maybe a year, I'll read about you in the obituaries. Another statistic, another sad story of potential wasted." He was so close now I could smell that cedar and smoke scent again. Could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "Or," he continued softly, "you can sign. Your mother gets Harbor View. Your debts disappear. You finish your degree. And all you have to do is talk to an old man who's lonely and make sure he takes his medication. That's not all, though, is it?" "No." His hand came up, fingers ghosting along my jaw without quite touching. "But the rest? We'll negotiate as we go." A knock at the door saved me from having to respond. David appeared, his expression carefully neutral. "Sir, your father is asking for dinner. He wants to know if Ms. Chen will be joining you." Yunseo stepped back, and I could breathe again. "Tell him yes. Give us 10 minutes. When David left, Yunseo turned back to me. "Sign the contract, Maya. I promise you, it's the least dangerous thing you'll do tonight." He left me alone with the papers and a pen that probably cost more than my textbooks. I read the contract 3 more times, looking for loopholes, traps, ways out. Found nothing but legal language and impossible promises. My phone buzzed. Another photo of my mother, this time with a doctor I recognized from the Harborview website. She was sitting up, actually sitting up, having what looked like a real conversation. The text below: "She's already there. The best care money can buy. All you have to do is sign." I signed. The pen felt heavy in my hand, and my signature looked like a stranger's. Maya Chen, agreeing to sell a year of her life to a man she didn't know, for reasons she didn't understand. When I came downstairs, following the sound of voices, I found a dining room that could have seated 20, but held only 3 place settings. James was already seated, and his face lit up when he saw me. "You came," he signed enthusiastically. "Yunseo said you might, but I wasn't sure." "Of course I came," I signed back, trying to smile. How could I refuse such a kind invitation? Yunseo watched our exchange from the head of the table, a glass of wine in his hand. "What are you saying?" "Your father is happy I'm here," I translated. "And are you?" "Happy?" I looked at the table laden with food. Korean dishes I didn't recognize, prepared by what must have been a professional chef. Looked at James, who was signing something about how excited he was to have someone to talk to. Looked at Yunseo, whose dark eyes held secrets and promises and threats in equal measure. "I'm here," I said. "That's all that matters." His smile was slow and sharp. "For now." Dinner was surreal. James signed constantly, telling me stories about Korea, about Yunseo as a child, about his late wife. I translated when asked, kept my hands moving, tried to ignore the way Yunseo watched me like he was solving a puzzle. "My father says I was a difficult child," Yunseo said at one point, amusement coloring his voice. "Is that what he said?" I said. "You were impossible," James corrected, grinning, "always getting into fights, always thinking you knew better than everyone." "Some things don't change," I murmured, then caught myself. Yunseo's eyebrow rose. "Did you just insult me?" I translated what your father said. "You added commentary." "Did I?" I met his gaze, felt that same dangerous pull. My mistake. James laughed silently, his whole body shaking with mirth. "I like her," he signed to his son. "Don't break her." Something dark flickered across Yunseo's face. "I'll try." After dinner, James hugged me goodnight, an unexpected gesture that made my throat tight, and was escorted away by one of the guards. Then it was just Yunseo and me in that enormous dining room. "Your room is ready," he said. "David will show you anything you need." "That's it? I just go to sleep? Unless you'd prefer to stay up with me." His smile was dangerous. "I have paperwork to finish. You could keep me company." Every instinct screamed to refuse, to run upstairs and lock myself in that gilded cage. Instead, I heard myself say, "Okay." His surprise was evident, just for a moment, before that mask of control slipped back into place. "Interesting choice," he murmured, and I wondered, not for the first time, exactly what I'd just agreed to. Yunseo's office was on the 3rd floor, accessible only by a private elevator that required both a keycard and a fingerprint scan. The precautions should have terrified me. Instead, I found myself cataloging every detail. The cameras in the corners, the reinforced door, the way his hand hovered near the small of my back without quite touching as he guided me inside. The room itself was a study in contradictions. One wall was entirely glass, overlooking the forest and the dark water beyond. The others were lined with books, some in English, many in Korean, a few in languages I didn't recognize. His desk was massive, made of dark wood that gleamed under recessed lighting, and covered with papers, laptops, phones, too many phones. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his desk. I sat, hyper-aware of how the chair seemed to swallow me, how small I felt in this space that was so clearly his domain. He poured 2 glasses of something amber from a crystal decanter. "Do you drink?" "Not usually. Tonight you do." He handed me a glass, his fingers brushing mine deliberately. "You'll need it." The whiskey burned going down, but it was smooth, expensive. nothing like the cheap vodka I'd shared with roommates in undergrad. Yunseo settled behind his desk, loosening his collar just slightly. The gesture made him look almost human. Almost. "Tell me about your father," he said. I blinked. "What?" "Your father. You said he left when you were 7. Tell me why." "That's none of your business. Everything about you is my business now, Maya." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You signed the contract. That means I need to know who you are, what makes you vulnerable, what could be used against you." "Used against me by whom?" His smile was cold. "By my enemies, by people who would see hurting you as a way to hurt me, by anyone who realizes that you've become—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Valuable to my household." The way he said valuable made my skin prickle. "My father was a gambling addict," I said finally, the words bitter on my tongue. "He borrowed money from the wrong people. One day he just disappeared. Left my mother with his debts and a 7-year-old daughter. Did they come after you? The people he owed?" "A few times. My mother worked 3 jobs to pay them off. It took her 5 years. I took another sip of whiskey. She sacrificed everything for his mistakes. And then she had the stroke, and I realized I was doing the exact same thing. Sacrificing everything, drowning in debt, destroying myself to fix problems that weren't mine. And now you're here." Yunseo's gaze was intense, unwavering, trading one kind of debt for another. "At least this debt comes with health insurance." He laughed, an actual laugh, low and genuine. "You have a spine after all. Good. You'll need it. Why?" I leaned forward. "What exactly are you involved in that requires this level of security? The guards, the cameras, the fingerprint scanners. You're not just some businessman, are you?" "No." He said it simply, without elaboration. "So what are you?" "Careful, Maya. Some questions, once answered, can't be unasked." He stood, moving to the window, his reflection ghostly against the darkness outside. "My father thinks you're innocent, pure. He wants me to protect that. And what do you think?" He turned, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. "I think innocence is a luxury neither of us can afford anymore." Before I could respond, one of his phones buzzed. He glanced at it, and his whole demeanor changed, shoulders tensing, jaw tightening, something dangerous sliding behind his eyes. "I need to make a call," he said. "You should go to bed." "What's wrong?" "Nothing that concerns you." But his hand was already reaching for another phone, and I saw the slight tremor in his fingers before he controlled it. "David will escort you. I'm not a child. I can find my own room. You're in my house now. You don't go anywhere alone." He pressed a button on his desk, and David appeared so quickly he must have been waiting right outside. "Take her upstairs. Make sure she has everything she needs." I stood, but something made me pause at the door. "Yunseo?" He looked up, surprised I'd used his name. "Whatever's wrong. I hope it gets better." For a moment, something soft crossed his face. Then it was gone, replaced by that mask of control. "Go to bed, Maya. Tomorrow starts early." David was silent as he escorted me back to my room, his hand resting casually near his jacket where I knew the gun was. When we reached my door, he finally spoke. "Mr. Kang doesn't usually bring people into his home. I'm here for his father." "You keep telling yourself that." His smile was kind, but knowing. "Mr. James will have breakfast at 8. Someone will come get you." I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, my heart racing. Through the windows, I could see lights in other parts of the compound, guards making rounds, cars coming and going, the infrastructure of whatever operation Yunseo ran humming beneath the surface. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt strangely alive. Sleep came in fits and starts, plagued by dreams of my mother's face, of Yunseo's dark eyes, of signing to someone I couldn't see in a language I didn't understand. I woke to sunlight streaming through the massive windows and a soft knock at the door. "Ms. Chen?" A woman's voice, accented. "I'm Mrs. Ko. I've brought breakfast and some clothes for you." I opened the door to find a Korean woman in her 50s with kind eyes and an efficient manner. She pushed in a cart laden with food: rice, soup, banchan, and what looked like a traditional Korean breakfast. Mr. Kang thought you might be hungry, she said, already laying things out on the small table by the window. And he noticed you didn't bring much clothing. These should fit. She gestured to the bed, where several outfits were laid out. Casual, but clearly expensive. All in my size. How did he know? Mr. Kang is very thorough. Mrs. Ko's smile was knowing. Eat, Mr. James is eager to see you. The food was incredible, each dish perfectly prepared, and I found myself eating more than I had in days. The clothes fit perfectly, designer jeans, a soft cashmere sweater, even undergarments in exactly my size. The level of detail was unsettling. I found James in a sunroom that overlooked a garden I hadn't noticed last night. He was doing Tai Chi, his movements slow and graceful, and he looked younger in the morning light. Good morning. He signed when he saw me, his face lighting up. Did you sleep well? Very well, thank you. I moved to join him by the windows. This place is beautiful. My wife designed it, he signed, something sad flickering across his features before she got sick. She wanted somewhere peaceful, away from the city. She had good taste. We spent the morning together, James showing me the garden, the library, the parts of the house that were his. He was easy to be around, his signing fluid and expressive, his stories painting a picture of a life I couldn't quite imagine. He told me about Korea, about meeting his wife at university, about coming to America with nothing but ambition and hope. He told me about Yoon Seo's childhood, about a boy who was too smart, too angry, too much like his father. He scares you, James signed at one point. We were sitting in the library, surrounded by books in a dozen languages. I considered lying. Yes. Good. He should. James's expression was grave. My son is not a good man, Maya. He does bad things for what he thinks are good reasons. And once you're close to him, it's hard to leave. Is that a warning? It's a fact. He reached over, patting my hand. But you're here now, and I'm grateful for that, even if I know I shouldn't be. That afternoon, Yoon Seo appeared in the library doorway. He'd changed into a dark suit, every inch the dangerous businessman again. Maya. A word. James's hand tightened on mine briefly before letting go. I followed Yoon Seo to a different room, a sitting room decorated in minimalist style with art that probably cost more than a house. He closed the door behind us. How was your morning with my father? Nice. He's a good man. Yes. Something complicated crossed Yoon Seo's face. He is. Which is why what I'm about to tell you is difficult. My stomach dropped. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Something's changed. He moved to pour himself a drink, even though it was barely past noon. You asked last night what I do. I told you to be careful asking questions. I remember. I'm going to answer anyway, because you need to understand what you've walked into. He downed the whiskey in one swallow. My family is involved in import-export, legitimate businesses mostly, but we also facilitate certain transactions, provide certain services, things that exist in gray areas of the law. You're in the Mafia. I said it flatly. That's a crude term, but essentially, yes. He watched my face carefully. Does that change things for you? I don't know. My hands were shaking. Should it? Most people would run. Most people aren't drowning in debt with a mother dying in a state facility. His smile was sharp. Practical. I like that. He set down the glass. There's something else. Someone I need you to meet. Who? Come. I'll show you. We went outside, to a different part of the compound I hadn't seen yet. There were more guards here, more security, and the atmosphere felt different, heavier, more dangerous. Yoon Seo led me to a building that looked like a guest house, but the reinforced door and security panel told a different story. Inside, a man was zip-tied to a chair. He was Korean, maybe 30, and he'd been beaten, one eye swollen shut, blood dried on his split lip. When he saw Yoon Seo, he flinched. I stopped in the doorway, my heart hammering. What is this? This, Yoon Seo said calmly, is Minjun Park. He worked for my organization. Yesterday, I discovered he's been stealing from me. $30,000 over the past 6 months. Minjun started speaking rapidly in Korean, his voice desperate. He's saying it wasn't him, Yunseo translated. That someone set him up. That he has a family, children who need him. He walked closer to the bound man. He's lying. How do you know? Because I always know. He turned to me. I brought you here for a reason, Maya. I want you to understand who I am, what I'm capable of. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to give you a choice. Right now, you can still leave. Sign a different contract, one that keeps you and your mother safe but separate from my world. Or you can stay. Knowing exactly what that means, I looked at Minjun, at the fear in his eyes, at the blood on his face, looked at Yunseo, standing there calm and controlled while a man begged for his life. What are you going to do to him? I whispered. That depends on several factors. Whether he tells me the truth, whether he can pay back what he stole, whether I'm feeling merciful. He stepped closer to me. Whether you ask me to be. What? Ask me to let him go, Maya, right now. Use that soft heart of yours and beg me to show mercy. It was a test. I could see it in his eyes, in the way he watched me with that predatory intensity. Minjun was sobbing now, words spilling out in Korean that I couldn't understand. Please, I said quietly. Please don't hurt him. Yunseo's expression didn't change. Why should I listen to you? Because... I struggled for words. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Because maybe he's telling the truth about his family. Because mercy is stronger than cruelty. Mercy is weakness. No. I met his gaze. Mercy is a choice. Cruelty is easy. Anyone can hurt someone weaker than them. It takes real strength to show compassion. The silence stretched between us, heavy and charged. Then Yunseo pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke in rapid Korean. When he hung up, he looked at me with something I couldn't quite name. He'll be released. After he pays back double what he stole. If he fails, or if I find out he lied about anything, he dies. He moved closer to me. And that blood will be on your hands, Maya. Because you asked me to be merciful. I can live with that. Can you? His hand came up, fingers ghosting along my cheek. We'll see. We left Minjun there, still zip-tied but alive. As we walked back to the main house, Yunseo was quiet, thoughtful. My father was right about you, he said finally. What did he say? That you'd be my conscience if I wasn't careful. He stopped walking, turned to face me. I don't want a conscience, Maya. I want... His phone rang. He answered it, his face going very still as he listened. Then he looked at me, and something in his expression made my blood run cold. Get inside, he said quietly. Now. What's wrong? Someone knows you're here. Someone who shouldn't. He was already moving, already making more calls, and guards were appearing from everywhere. We need to get you somewhere safe. I don't understand. He grabbed my arm, not gently, pulling me toward the house. Your father's debts, the people he owed. They're not gone, Maya. They've been waiting. And now they know you're under my protection. How would they? Because someone told them. His jaw was tight. Someone in my organization. Someone who wants to use you to get to me. We were running now, David and 2 other guards flanking us. The house loomed ahead, and I could see more men taking up positions, weapons appearing. What's going to happen? I gasped. Yunseo pulled me inside, into an elevator I hadn't seen before, one that went down instead of up. That depends, he said as the doors closed, on how much you're worth to them. The elevator descended into darkness, and I realized with cold certainty that I'd made a terrible mistake. I'd thought I was trading one cage for another. I hadn't realized I was trading safety for war. The elevator opened into a bunker. There was no other word for it. Reinforced concrete walls, multiple computer screens showing security feeds from every angle of the compound, a weapons locker that made my stomach turn, and a communications setup that looked like something from a spy movie. Stay here, Yunseo commanded, already moving to the screens. Don't touch anything. Don't leave this room. You can't just lock me down here. I can, and I will. He was typing commands into a computer, and I watched the security feeds shift, Zoom, refocus. David, stay with her. Shoot anyone who tries to get through that door who isn't me or my father. David nodded, his hand already on his weapon. I grabbed Yunseo's arm before he could leave. Tell me what's happening, please. For a moment, his mask cracked, and I saw something underneath. Fear, maybe, or fury so tightly controlled it had turned to ice. Your father didn't just borrow from loan sharks, Maya. He borrowed from the Jade Dragon Triad. When he disappeared, they marked the debt as unpaid. Your mother paid some of it, but not enough. They've been watching you for years, waiting for you to become valuable enough to collect. My legs went weak. That's impossible. My mother paid them. She paid the interest. The principal is still outstanding. $140,000, compounded over 18 years. His hands gripped my shoulders. And now you're living in my house, wearing my clothes, under my protection. To them, that makes you a bargaining chip. Either I pay your father's debt, or they take you and make me pay anyway. This is insane. This is the world you walked into when you signed that contract. He released me, already heading for the door. David keeps you safe. That's all that matters. Then he was gone, and I was alone with a man holding a gun in an underground bunker while my father's ghost came back to haunt me. David gestured to a chair. You should sit, Ms. Chen. I should help. You'd be a liability up there. Mr. Kang knows what he's doing. I sat, watching the security feeds with growing horror. Men were approaching the compound, 6 of them that I could see, maybe more in the shadows. They moved with military precision, spreading out to cover all angles. On one screen, I saw Yunseo emerge from the house with 8 of his men. He looked calm, controlled, hands loose at his sides. But I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his men positioned themselves in a protective formation. The audio crackled to life. Kang Yunseo. The voice was heavily accented, speaking English. We come to discuss a debt. There is no debt between us, Chen Wei. Yunseo's voice was cold. The girl is under my protection. That makes her my concern, not yours. Her father's debt died with him. Or should have if you had any honor. I heard someone laugh, harsh and mocking. Honor? From the man who built his empire on blood and betrayal? Your father would be ashamed. Something flickered across Yunseo's face on the screen. Leave. Now, before this becomes a problem neither of us wants. Give us the girl. We'll forgive the debt, walk away clean. You keep your honor, we keep ours. No. The word was flat, final. Then we take her. Everything happened at once. Gunfire erupted on the screens, not from Yunseo's men, but from the forest beyond. Suppressed shots. Professional, calculated. 2 of the Triad members went down before they could even raise their weapons. Yunseo and his men had already taken cover, returning fire with brutal efficiency. I watched, transfixed and horrified, as the compound turned into a war zone. They were waiting, David murmured beside me. Mr. Kang knew they'd come armed. He had counter-snipers positioned since this morning. He knew? I turned to him. He knew this would happen? He suspected. The moment you signed that contract, he started preparing. David's expression was grim. Mr. Kang doesn't leave things to chance. On the screen, Yunseo was moving, not retreating, but advancing. He moved like water, like violence given form, and I realized with cold clarity that this was who he really was. Not the controlled businessman in the expensive suit, but this, a predator in his element. The firefight lasted maybe 3 minutes. When it ended, 4 of the Triad members were dead, 2 were wounded and being zip-tied by Yunseo's men, and Chen Wei was on his knees with a gun to his head. Yunseo stood over him, and even through the grainy security feed, I could see the cold fury in his posture. Take them to the holding cells, he commanded. I'll deal with them later. Then he looked directly at the camera, directly at me. Bring her up. David escorted me back through the elevator, his weapon still drawn, his body positioned to shield me from any threat. When we emerged into the house, the silence was deafening. Mrs. Ko appeared, her face pale but composed. Mr. James is asking for you, she said quietly. He's frightened. Where is he? His room. 2nd floor, east wing. I ran. James was sitting on his bed, trembling, his hands moving in frantic signs before he even saw me. What's happening? Why was there shooting? Where's Yunseo? He's okay, I signed, moving to sit beside him. Everyone's okay. There was a threat, but it's handled now. Because of you. His hands were shaking. This is because of you, isn't it? I couldn't lie to him. Yes. I told him not to bring you here. Told him it was too dangerous. Tears welled in his eyes. But he never listens, never thinks about the consequences. I'm sorry. I signed, my own hands trembling. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. He grabbed my hands, stilling them. That's what makes this so cruel. You're innocent, and now you're trapped in our world. The door opened. Yunseo stood there, blood on his shirt. Not his, I thought, hoped, his expression unreadable. Get out. James signed to his son. You've done enough. I need to speak with Maya. She's not one of your employees to order around. She's a person. A good person. And you're going to destroy her just like you destroy everything else. I'd never seen Yunseo flinch before. But he did then, just slightly, before that mask slammed back into place. 5 minutes, he said to me. My office. Please. The please surprised me. I signed to James that I'd be back, that everything would be okay. Lies, maybe, but necessary ones. Then I followed Yunseo through hallways that suddenly felt like a maze, each turn taking me deeper into something I didn't understand. His office door closed behind us with a soft click that sounded like a cell locking. Sit, he said, but I remained standing. You knew. You knew they'd come for me. I suspected. And you didn't tell me? Didn't warn me? Would you have stayed if I had? He moved to pour himself a drink, and I noticed his hands weren't quite steady. Would you have signed that contract knowing people might die because of you? People did die because of me. People died because they came onto my property with weapons, threatening what's mine. He downed the whiskey. That's on them, not you. I'm not yours. Yes, you are. He set down the glass carefully, too carefully. The moment you signed that contract, the moment you ate at my table, the moment you smiled at my father, you became mine to protect, mine to keep safe. Mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, it sent heat curling through my stomach. This is insane, I whispered. Yes. He moved closer, and I could smell gunpowder mixed with that cedar scent. Welcome to my world, Maya, where debts never die, where innocence is a liability, where the only thing that matters is power and who wields it. I want to leave. No, you don't. He was so close now I could see flecks of someone else's blood on his collar. You want to run. That's different. Running is fear. Leaving is choice. And you're not choosing to leave. How do you know? Because if you wanted to leave, you wouldn't be here right now. You'd be in David's car, heading back to your apartment and your dying mother, and your suffocating debt. His hand came up, fingers tracing my jaw with devastating gentleness. But you're here, in my office, arguing with me. Which means part of you wants to stay. You're delusional. Am I? His thumb brushed my lower lip, and I hated how my breath caught. Then why are you shaking? Why is your pulse racing? Why haven't you pulled away? Because he was right. God help me. He was right. What do you want from me? The question came out broken. Everything. He said it simply, like it was obvious. Your time, your loyalty, your trust. Eventually. His eyes darkened. Everything else too. I'm not some prize to be won. No. You're a complication I didn't plan for. A weakness I can't afford. A liability that makes me vulnerable. He leaned in, his lips brushing my ear. And I'm keeping you anyway. A knock at the door shattered the moment. David's voice. Sir, Chen Wei is talking. You need to hear this. Yunseo pulled back, his expression shifting instantly to cold control. Stay here. Don't leave this room until I come back. I'm not a prisoner. Yes, you are. He was already at the door. You just haven't accepted it yet. He left me alone in that office, my heart racing, my hands shaking, my mind spinning with everything that had happened. I should leave. Should run like he said, get as far away as possible. Instead, I found myself at his desk, looking at the papers scattered there. Most were in Korean, but some were in English. Shipping manifests, financial reports. Nothing obviously illegal, but nothing obviously legitimate either. Then I saw it. A file folder, labeled with my name. Inside were photos of me at work, at school, visiting my mother. Bank statements, medical records, even my college transcripts. Everything about my life, compiled with terrifying thoroughness. And at the bottom, a photo I'd never seen before. My father, younger, standing next to a Korean man I didn't recognize. They were both smiling, arms around each other's shoulders. The Korean man was older, but the resemblance was unmistakable. It was James. My hands went numb. The photo fell to the desk. Yoon-seo's voice came from behind me. I was going to tell you. I spun around. He stood in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral. Tell me what? That you've been stalking me? That you have files on my entire life? That... I grabbed the photo, holding it up with shaking hands. That my father knew yours? They were friends. Before your father's addiction got bad. Before he started borrowing from the wrong people. They grew up in the same neighborhood in Seoul. Came to America together. Yoon-seo moved into the room slowly, like approaching a frightened animal. When your father disappeared, my father tried to find him, tried to help your mother, but she refused. Said she wanted nothing to do with anyone from that life. So this was all, what? Charity? Guilt? This was my father seeing your face in that diner and recognizing your father in your eyes. This was him smiling for the first time in 3 years because someone could finally talk to him. Yoon-seo's voice was hard. This was me honoring my father's wish to help the daughter of his dead friend. Dead? The word came out strangled. Your father is dead, Maya, has been for 15 years. The Jade Dragon Triad killed him when he couldn't pay. He pulled out another file, this one thicker. We found his body 3 months ago, buried in a construction site in Tacoma. I was going to tell you, but what? You thought I couldn't handle it? Tears were streaming down my face now. You thought you could just decide what I should and shouldn't know? I thought you had enough to deal with. His control cracked. Your mother dying, your debt crushing you, your whole life falling apart. I thought you deserved one moment of peace before I destroyed even that. You don't get to make those decisions for me. Yes, I do, he was shouting now, all pretense gone. Because you're mine now. Because from the moment you signed that contract, your life became my responsibility. Because... He stopped, breathing hard, and I saw something raw and desperate in his eyes. Because what? I whispered. Because my father loves you already. Because you make him smile. Because you walked into my house and somehow made it feel less like a fortress and more like a home. His hands clenched at his sides. Because every time I see you, I want things I shouldn't want. Because you're everything I can't have and everything I refuse to let go. The silence that followed was deafening. I want to see my father's body, I said finally. Maya, you owe me that much. After all the lies, all the manipulation, all the decisions you made for me, you owe me the truth. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Tomorrow. I'll take you myself. Tonight. It's midnight. Tonight, or I walk out that door and never come back. It was an empty threat. We both knew it. But he nodded anyway. Get your coat. And Maya? He caught my arm as I passed. What you're going to see, it won't give you closure. It'll only give you more questions. I'll take my chances. We drove in silence, one of his armored SUVs cutting through the dark streets of Seattle. David drove, another guard in the passenger seat, and Yoon-seo sat beside me in the back, close enough that I could feel his heat but not touching. The morgue was cold, sterile, and smelled like chemicals that couldn't quite mask the scent of decay. The attendant led us to a drawer, pulled it out with practiced efficiency. The body was skeletal, mostly bones and scraps of fabric. But there was enough. Dental records, DNA, the remnants of a watch my mother had given him on their anniversary. It was him. My father, who I'd hated for leaving, who I'd blamed for everything wrong in my life, reduced to bones in a drawer. How did you find him? I asked, my voice echoing in the cold room. The triad who killed him is dead now. His lieutenant talked before he died. Yunseo stood behind me, his presence steady. Your father died owing 140,000. I've paid that debt. You're free of it. I turned to face him. Why? Because my father would want me to, because it was the right thing to do. His jaw tightened. Because I needed you free of them, so you'd only be bound to me. There it was again. That possessiveness. That need to control. Take me home, I said quietly. Which home? I looked at the bones that used to be my father. At the man who'd ruined my life by trying to save his own. Thought about my mother, safe and cared for at Harborview. About James, who smiled when he saw me. About Yunseo, who was dangerous and damaged, and somehow trying to protect me in the only way he knew how. Your home, I whispered. Take me back to your home. Something fierce and triumphant flashed across his face. In the SUV, I finally let myself cry, for my father, for my mother, for the girl I'd been who thought the world was simple and choices were clear. Yunseo pulled me against him without a word, and I let him. Let myself find comfort in the arms of a man who'd lied to me, manipulated me, and somehow still made me feel safer than I had in years. I hate you, I whispered against his chest. I know. I don't trust you. You will. This is insane. Yes. His arms tightened around me. But you're still here. And I was. Despite everything, despite all the reasons I should run, I was still here. Still choosing this cage, this danger, this man. God help me. I was still choosing him. The next 3 weeks passed in a strange, suspended reality. Days fell into a rhythm I hadn't expected. Mornings with James, teaching him new signs and learning about his life before America, before his wife died, before his world went silent. Afternoons in the library or the garden, sometimes alone, sometimes with Mrs. Ko, who taught me to make kimchi and told me stories about Yunseo's childhood in careful, deliberate English. Evenings were dinner with both men, my hands moving constantly between them, translating not just words but emotions, bridging a gap that had existed long before I arrived. And nights. Nights were when Yunseo would find me. Never in my room. He'd knock, always knock, and ask me to join him. Sometimes in his office where I'd sit and read while he worked, the silence comfortable, charged. Sometimes in the media room where we'd watch Korean films and he'd translate the parts the subtitles missed. Once, memorably, in the kitchen at 2 a.m. where he'd taught me to make his mother's jjigae, his hands guiding mine, his breath warm against my neck. He never pushed, never demanded, but the want was there, simmering between us like a flame neither of us would acknowledge. You're different with her, David said one afternoon. We were in the garden, James napping inside, and David had been assigned to shadow me. Protection, Yunseo claimed, though we both knew the triad threat had been neutralized. Different how? Softer? Almost. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Almost happy. I looked toward the house where I could see Yunseo in his office, phone pressed to his ear, probably discussing things I was better off not knowing. He's not capable of happy. You'd be surprised what people are capable of given the right motivation. David's smile was knowing. Mr. James thinks you're good for his son. What do you think? I signed, forgetting for a moment he didn't understand ASL. But James appeared at that moment, freshly awake, signing his response. I think you're either his salvation or his destruction, maybe both. That evening, Yunseo asked me to dress for dinner. We're having guests, he said, standing in my doorway in a suit that probably cost more than my old car. Business associates. I need you there. I'm not part of your business. You're part of my household. That makes you part of everything. He gestured to the closet where I found a dress I'd never seen before. Deep emerald silk that hugged every curve, elegant and expensive. Wear this. And Maya? His eyes darkened. Stay close to me tonight. The guests arrived at 7, 3 Korean men in expensive suits, accompanied by a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. They greeted Yunseo with deference that bordered on fear, their eyes sliding to me with curiosity barely concealed. Dinner was tense despite Mrs. Ko's excellent food. The conversation flowed in Korean, occasionally switching to English when they remembered I was there. I sat beside Yunseo, hyper-aware of his hand resting on the back of my chair, his thumb occasionally brushing my shoulder blade. Claiming me, I realized, showing ownership. "Your interpreter is quite beautiful," one of the men said in English, his smile oily. "Where did you find her?" "She's not my interpreter." Yunseo's voice was cold. "She's here for my father." "Of course. Still, such a rare find. A black woman who knows Korean Sign Language. You always did have exquisite taste." James, who'd been quiet until then, signed something sharp and angry. I translated automatically. "He says I'm a person, not a collector's item, and if you speak about me like that again, he'll ask his son to remove your tongue." The silence was absolute. Then Yunseo laughed, genuinely laughed, and said something in Korean that made his father grin, and the guests shift uncomfortably. After they left, Yunseo found me on the terrace, staring out at the dark water. "You didn't have to translate that," he said, leaning against the railing beside me. "He asked me to. My father is getting bold in his old age. Your father sees people as people. Maybe you should try it sometime." "I do see people as people." He turned to face me. "I see you very clearly, Maya. Do you?" I met his gaze. "Or do you just see what you want to see? A project, maybe. Or a replacement for the mother your father lost. Is that what you think?" His voice was dangerous, quiet. "I don't know what to think anymore. I've been living in your house for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of being watched and guarded and possessed. Like I'm some prize you won. You're not a prize. Then what am I?" He was silent for a long moment. Then, "Come with me. I want to show you something." We drove. Just the two of us this time. Yunseo behind the wheel of a car I'd never seen before, sleek and fast. We headed into the city, toward a neighborhood I recognized with a pang. My old neighborhood. He parked outside my former apartment building. The eviction notice was gone from my door, but I could see through the window. My things were gone, the space empty. "I had everything moved to storage," Yunseo said quietly. "In case you wanted it back." "Why would I want it back?" "Because I needed you to know you could leave." He turned to face me in the dim light. "That door, I had the eviction canceled. Your landlord has been paid through the end of the year. Your things are safe. Your mother has a bed at Harborview regardless of where you are." His hand found mine in the darkness. "You're not trapped, Maya. You never were." My throat tightened. "You said I belong to you." I said a lot of things, some of them true, some of them aspirational. His thumb traced circles on my palm. "The truth is you scare me. You walk into my house with your soft heart and your bright smile, and you make my father happy. You make him hope. And hope is the most dangerous thing in my world. Why? Because hope makes you vulnerable. Makes you care about things you shouldn't care about. Makes you..." He stopped, his jaw tight. "Makes you what?" "Makes you want things you can't have." He released my hand, gripping the steering wheel instead. "I've done terrible things, Maya. Hurt people, killed people, built an empire on blood and fear. And then you show up, signing to my father, translating his jokes, making him smile, and suddenly I want to be the kind of man who deserves that, who deserves you. Yunseo. But I'm not. I'm the man who stalked you for weeks before approaching you, who manipulated your debt to make you desperate, who brought you into my world knowing it would destroy your innocence." His laugh was bitter. "My father was right to warn you. I ruin everything I touch." I should have agreed. Should have taken the out he was offering, gone back to my empty apartment and my simple life. Instead, I leaned across the console and kissed him. He froze for a heartbeat, then his hands were in my hair, pulling me closer, kissing me back with a desperation that stole my breath. He tasted like whiskey and danger, and something desperately, achingly human. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "This is a mistake," he whispered against my lips. "Probably. You should leave. Should get as far away from me as possible." "I know. Maya, take me home," I said. "To your home. Our home." Something broke in his expression. Something carefully controlled shattering. You're sure? No, but I'm choosing it anyway. The drive back was silent, charged. When we arrived, James was waiting in the entry hall, his expression knowing. You told her. He signed to his son. Yes. And she stayed. Yes. James looked at me, his eyes sad and hopeful in equal measure. You don't have to do this. Don't have to save him. He's not your responsibility. I know, I signed back, but maybe I'm not trying to save him. Maybe I'm just trying to save myself. From what? From being alone. James pulled me into a hug, and I felt his chest shake with silent tears. When he pulled back, he signed, "Love him carefully. He breaks easily, even if he pretends he doesn't." That night, I didn't wait for Yunseo to knock. I went to his room, the one I'd never entered before, the inner sanctum he'd kept separate from everything else. He was sitting on the edge of his bed when I opened the door, still in his dress shirt, but the tie gone, looking more human than I'd ever seen him. Maya. Don't, I said. Don't tell me this is a mistake, or that I should leave, or that you're dangerous. I know all of that. I've known it from the beginning. Then why are you here? I moved closer, and he watched me with those dark eyes that had haunted my dreams. Because I'm tired of being alone. Because your father makes me laugh. Because you... I stopped, searching for words. Because when I'm with you, I feel alive for the first time in years. Even when I'm terrified. Even when I hate you. Do you? Hate me, sometimes. I reached out, my fingers tracing his jaw. Other times, he caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. Don't say it. Not yet. Not until you're sure. When will I be sure? Maybe never. He pulled me closer, and I went willingly, settling into his lap, his arms coming around me. Maybe this is just two broken people finding comfort in the wreckage. Maybe that's enough. He kissed me then, gentle this time. Reverent, like I was something precious instead of something he owned. And when he laid me back against his sheets, when his hands learned the shape of me and mine, learned the scars he kept hidden, it felt less like possession and more like surrender. Mutual, devastating, complete. Afterward, lying in his arms, I traced the scar across his ribs. What happened? Knife fight. 3 years ago. Someone who thought they could take what was mine. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my shoulder. I won. You always do. Not always. His arms tightened. I lost my mother. Almost lost my father when grief nearly killed him. Lose pieces of myself every day trying to be what my world demands. He pressed a kiss to my temple. But you? I'm not losing you. I won't allow it. That's not your choice to make. Then make it yours. Choose to stay. Not because you owe me, not because you're grateful, not because you're afraid, but because you want this, want us. I thought about my old life, the exhaustion, the loneliness, the slow drowning in debt and despair. Thought about my mother, safe and cared for, about James, who'd become the father mine never was, about this beautiful, broken man who'd manipulated and protected me in equal measure. I want this, I whispered. God help me. I want all of it. His exhale was shaky, relieved. Then stay. On one condition. He pulled back to look at me. Name it. No more lies, no more secrets. If I'm part of this world, I need to know all of it. Some things. All of it, Yunseo, or none of it. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. All of it. Over the next weeks, he kept that promise. Showed me the legitimate businesses, the shipping company, the restaurants, the real estate holdings. And the other parts, the money laundering, the protection rackets, the gray areas where legal and illegal blurred into something else entirely. I'm not a good man, he said one night in his office, showing me financial records that probably could have put him in prison. But I protect what's mine, feed families that depend on me. Keep order in a world that would tear itself apart without structure. You justify it. I survive it. There's a difference. I learned to navigate his world. Learned which questions to ask and which to ignore. Learned how to smile at dangerous men and translate conversations that made my skin crawl. learned to live with the weight of knowledge that could destroy lives. But I also learned the other parts. The way Yunseo donated anonymously to hospitals and schools, the way he paid for elderly neighbors' medical bills without them knowing, the way he protected women fleeing domestic violence, gave jobs to ex-cons nobody else would hire, built something resembling community in the spaces between his sins. He was a monster, and he was a man. Somehow, impossibly, he was both. 6 months after that first dinner, James had a stroke. Minor, the doctors said. He'd recover, but his mobility would be limited. He needed constant care now, supervision. "I'll do it," I said immediately. Yunseo shook his head. "You have your degree now. You could work anywhere. This is exactly what I want." I took his hand. "James's family. I paused. "Your family, too." Something soft and vulnerable crossed his face. "Maya, I love him," I said. "I love your father, and I took a breath. "I love you too. Even though you're dangerous and controlling and impossible, I love you anyway." He pulled me close, his face buried in my neck. "I don't deserve you. No, but you have me anyway." We married quietly 3 months later. A small ceremony with just James, Mrs. Coe, David, and a few others from Yunseo's inner circle. I wore white, he wore black, and James cried through the entire thing. "You made my son human again," he signed afterward, his hands shaky but clear. "Thank you." My mother died 2 weeks after the wedding. She went peacefully, surrounded by care she never could have afforded without Yunseo's money. And in her last lucid moments, she knew me, held my hand, told me she was proud. I buried her next to my father. The bones we'd identified had been released, given a proper funeral, laid to rest in a cemetery with trees and birds and peace. Yunseo stood beside me at both graves, silent and solid, his hand in mine. "Thank you," I whispered. "For what?" "For giving them dignity. For giving me closure. My voice broke. "For saving me. You saved yourself, Maya. I just gave you the tools." Maybe that was true. Or maybe we'd saved each other. 2 broken people building something whole from the wreckage of our separate pasts. Life settled into a new rhythm. I finished my degree, started working as an interpreter for several organizations Yunseo quietly funded. James improved slowly, his mobility limited but his spirit bright, especially on the days I brought him to my mother's grave and signed stories about her. The danger never fully went away. There were always threats, always rivals, always the weight of the world Yunseo had built. But there was also love, fierce, complicated, imperfect love. One night, a year after our wedding, I found Yunseo on the terrace, where we'd had that first real conversation. "What are you thinking about?" I asked, sliding into his arms. How 3 years ago I was eating in a cheap diner and a beautiful woman started signing to my father. His arms tightened around me, how that moment changed everything. "Regret it?" "Never." He kissed my temple. "You're the best mistake I ever made." "I'm not a mistake. No, you're my miracle." He turned me to face him, his expression serious. "I have something for you." He handed me a folder. Legal documents, adoption papers. "What is this?" "James wants to officially adopt you. Make you his daughter legally, not just emotionally." Yunseo's smile was soft. "He says you gave him his voice back. The least he can do is give you a family name you can be proud of." I read through the papers with tears streaming down my face. "Kang Maya? If you want it." I thought about my father, buried under his own name. About my mother, who'd sacrificed everything for his mistakes. About the girl I'd been, exhausted, drowning, invisible. And about the woman I'd become, loved, protected, seen. "I want it," I whispered. James signed the papers the next day, his hands steady, his smile bright. And when it was official, when I was legally his daughter and Yunseo's wife, he pulled me into a hug that smelled like soap and safety. "Welcome home," he signed. My daughter, my family. That night, in bed with Yunseo, I finally felt it. The thing I'd been chasing my whole life. Peace. Not the absence of danger or fear or complication, but the presence of something stronger. Love, belonging, home. "What are you smiling about?" Yuncio murmured, pulling me closer. "I was just thinking. I spent so long drowning, trying to stay afloat, fighting to survive." I looked at him. This dangerous, beautiful man who'd terrified and saved me. "I never realized that sometimes you have to sink all the way to the bottom before someone can pull you up. And have you been pulled up?" I kissed him, slow and deep, and full of every emotion I couldn't name. "No, we pulled each other up, together." Outside, the forest whispered in the wind. The house settled around us, full of ghosts and futures, and the weight of choices made. And somewhere in the East Wing, James slept peacefully, knowing his son had finally found something worth protecting more than power. Worth protecting more than anything, a family. Broken, imperfect, built from wreckage and second chances. But ours. Finally, impossibly, beautifully ours.